wants a Kaga? That's right, we are done with our Kutuzov raffle drawing, and the winner is Ernesto. I don't know his in-screen name. This was a YouTube submission, so I reached out to him via email, and I'm waiting on him to respond back. If for some reason he doesn't after a week, I will re-roll the Kutuzov. And this also means that today we are starting with a raffle for the Kaga. I was going to give away the Graf Zeppelin, but I actually want people to enter. I don't want to turn people away. So, but right? Yeah, so about the Graf Zeppelin. I know a lot has been said regarding it. I know that you've heard it sucks. It's a horrible ship. A lot of things have happened in the community. I'm not going to beat a dead horse into the ground. I've played it, and even mediocre aircraft carrier player myself knows that it's not a good ship. However, interestingly enough, its HE auto drop isn't that bad. Of course, therein lies the problem that you can auto drop perfectly fine, as you're going to see in this round that I'm playing with the Graf Zeppelin. There's really no benefit to being a Unicum player in this ship as it stood. An average player can do just as good in it with auto drop, and there's really no benefit to manual drop. So, interesting thing about the ship, but it's all moot at this point because the ship is gone. That's right, ejected, thrown out of the game for now. Wargaming, listen, it took them a little while, it took some hiccups, and again, hopefully we'll get a better ship out of it. They're working on the deep-running torpedoes, which they're supposed to add in the future. We don't know yet. So anyhow, I am not going to harp on this. You know everyone's thoughts on it. You've seen iChase's video. You've seen Knotzer's video. You've seen all the videos regarding this ship. And if you bought it and kept it, it will get better. It'll be made better. So anyhow, Kaga will be the ship for this next raffle drawing. It's live now, so get entered. The link is in the description of this video. So there's information about the raffle, and there's also a mini review of the Graf Zeppelin, which you already knew. So you've probably noticed the name of this title is Why You and I Suck at Aircraft Carriers. Yes, that's right. I really want to be good at aircraft carriers. I thought I'd be good. I was good at Command and Conquer back in the day, real-time strategy games, so I thought that would translate over to this, at least a little bit. And, I mean, it helps. It helps with the management of squadrons and everything else, but I'm just not where I want to be. So why is that? Why? You know, it's interesting about aircraft carriers. The population is made up of 4 types of aircraft carrier players. You're elite, you're good, you're average, and you're bad. Like any ship, right? But the problem is the elite players and the good are few, and the average and bad are many. There are a lot more average and bad players than there are elite and good. And because of this, carriers are the one class that can complete a total mismatch in the game and just throw the balance off completely. If you've got an elite carrier player going up an average or a bad carrier player, your team is already at a huge disadvantage. More so than if you've got good battleship players against average battleship players or any other ship class. Carriers are that one class where a mismatch just creates havoc. But the question is, why are there so many bad players at aircraft carriers? Why are you so bad? Why am I so bad? And when I say you, I know a lot of you out there might be good at aircraft carriers. I know this. I'm just saying in general, why are aircraft carriers so hard to play? And I think I've kind of pegged it. I think I know some of the reasons, and some of it's Wargaming's fault, and some of it's our fault. So let's talk about aircraft carriers right now, and why the population as a whole is not that great at aircraft carriers, or you see so many more average aircraft carriers than good aircraft carrier players. So first and foremost, the controls aren't the best, nor are the manual strafing controls and the dropping controls. It is not very intuitive. There's been no tutorials from Wargaming, no directions, nothing. You're pretty much at the mercy of learning from other players how to play aircraft carriers. So if you don't get on YouTube, if you're not aware of YouTube even, you're already at a huge disadvantage. So, you know, those of you that have been watching Wargaming YouTube videos for a long time, those of you that have been watching good CV players on YouTube and Twitch, like iChase, Femininally, sorry Fem, I'm having trouble pronouncing your name, but you know who I'm talking about. those players, the Murphy von Mahlers out there, those players, if you've been watching them, then you have some insight on how to play CVs good. But YouTube and players that watch YouTube make up a microscopic portion of the wargaming community. You know, probably not even 5% if I'm willing to wager. Think about the millions of players that are just at a huge disadvantage. So, right off the bat, that's one reason why. And I level that on Wargaming. And if Wargaming's listening, I hope they do more to help players out. I know there's a CV retool coming, and we'll see if that actually helps. Another reason that we're not that great at aircraft carriers as a whole is they are so fundamentally different from other classes. That's right. Destroyers, battleships, cruisers, they all have similarities with each other. They all play somewhat the same. If you can fire your guns on one ship, you can fire them on another. If you can fire torps on one ship, you can fire them on another. However, aircraft carriers are not that. You've got that top-down, red alert, command and conquer, or whatever real-time strategy game you want to call it, play style in there. And that's not easy for a lot of players. You're juggling 4, 5, and 6 squadrons of airplanes on top of your own ships. It's not an easy thing for every player. So if you're not good at real-time strategy games, you might not be good at aircraft carriers. Another big hindrance to aircraft carriers is that tiers 4 and 5 lost their manual drop abilities, and I think that as a whole has hindered player development. So again, that's another wargaming issue. Really, 4 and 5 don't do you any good and prepare you for tier 6. So when new players trying to learn aircraft carriers get to tier 6, they're already at a disadvantage if they're going up against players that are really, really good. There's that mismatch thing again. I really think taking away manual drop from 4 and 5 it just kind of created havoc. And I know one of the reasons they did it was because there are a lot of good players that like to go down there and seal club at 4 and 5, but you're not doing a service by taking away that ability. You got to be able to learn the proper mechanics right away, and I just don't think that helped. So the gap in player skill continues to widen. New players get stomped by good players, and honestly, they lose their desire to play aircraft carriers, and they just move back to the ships that they know how to play. So if you weren't there from the very beginning playing aircraft carriers, back in closed beta or even the alpha phase, you're probably not going to have a good time if you're just picking it up and starting right now. Also, it depends on the line you pick. If you start with the IJN line, you're probably better off, but if you start with the USN line, right by the time you get to tier 5, 6, and 7, it feels like a huge mismatch. So these are all wargaming things right here. These are things that they can affect by tweaking US aircraft carriers. You know, the IJN carriers just have so many more squadrons, torpedo bomber after torpedo bomber. You wind up in games, and I noticed this during this season of ranked gameplay. If my team had an IJN carrier and the other team had an Independence, we were almost likely going to win, or at least we stood a lot better chance. So those are tweaks on Wargaming's side. Lastly, this one is on us as the player. Aircraft carriers just take a lot more time and devotion, and a lot of players just don't have the patience for it, me included. Most carrier players that are really good usually main aircraft carriers, or they've been playing them a long time, like I said already. They've been playing them since closed beta and beyond. That is on us. Either that or these carrier players are just good at ships in general. You know, they're well-rounded and can play every single class. But for the average player who's jumping in, just playing casually, doesn't have a lot of time, they're not going to be the best at carriers because they really take a lot of devotion. Your best aircraft carrier players pretty much play aircraft carriers and aircraft carriers alone. How do we not suck? How do we, the average and bad players, get better at aircraft carriers? As I said, part of it is on us, but I feel Wargaming shares a lot of the blame, and they've created a little bit of a hole for the average player and the weekend warrior who comes out and plays every so often. So one of the things they need to do is they need to make that interface a little more intuitive. They need to make it a little easier. They also need to balance. You got to balance all the CVs, because I'm not going to bring up the Graf Zeppelin again, but a lot of US aircraft carriers struggle against IJN aircraft carriers, and you don't have to be a carrier player to know this. I mean, if you're a battleship player or cruiser player, you know this just by watching. It's out there and it's obvious. So that's one thing that needs to be done to help. Plane survivability and taking the RNG factor out a little bit more in drops, that's also an issue. I don't know how they can fix that. But if they do that, they can help a little as well. Again, as I mentioned, part of the blame is on us. We don't devote enough time to aircraft carriers and we get frustrated very easily. It is hard to learn when players expect a Tier 6 CV player to play good. But you gotta understand that those players might come into Tier 6 not fully understanding manual drop because they were taken out of Tier 4 and Tier 5. I know a lot of teams get mad when aircraft carrier players aren't that good, but remember, Tier 6 and Tier 7 aircraft carrier players are still very green. They're still trying to grasp manual drops if they're a new player, so you got to keep this in mind. Overall, carrier players, especially new carrier players, have been put in a very, very tough spot. Those coming into the game are in a tough spot. The rewards for playing just aren't there. However, I will say that being a good carrier player can be very rewarding. You know, your best aircraft carrier players out there reap the benefits. I mean, they can go out and devastating strike, alpha strike, other battleships, aircraft carriers, but they've been at it for a very, very long time. So there you have it. And, you know, as I've said, you've been watching Graf Zeppelin gameplay. It was an interesting round for me, and, you know, I just kind of decided to jump in the round after all the badness broke around the Graf Zeppelin. This was just before it was removed, and you can see, as I said, there is no benefit to manual dropping, so I am auto dropping in this round to decent effect. You know, you did see I had 3 squadrons of dive bombers wiped, just completely strafed out of the sky. Their survivability not that good, even fighter survivability not that good, so this highlights the round and how the ship itself can be very, very frustrating for a new or average player that just wants a premium to kind of bypass those manual, or excuse me, those auto drop tier 4 and 5 tiers. So there it is. You know, Graf Zeppelin gone. We suck at aircraft carriers. There's a few great aircraft carrier players out there running amok, just making life miserable, and I'm being over melodramatic, but that's how it is. So, you know, hopefully moving forward, Wargaming will do some things to make CV playing a little more, I guess, easy for new players, how to help us out, and make it more intuitive. There are things that can be done, and I know they're working on it. I know they are. They've said time after time. However long it takes, we don't know, because it really takes them a while to implement changes. I mean, sometimes up to a year, and that's just the way it is. That's the development process in any game, so yes, you suck at aircraft carriers. I suck at aircraft carriers, and there's a few people that are just really, really good. And again, I know you, my viewers, don't collectively suck. I know a lot of you are probably really good at them, and I know a lot of you are probably really frustrated with them. Moving forward, we'll see how things play out. If you want to be good at aircraft carriers, guys, you just gotta really devote a lot of time to them. Watch those videos from better players out there and learn from them. I guess for now, that's the only way to do it. Anyhow, I wish you the best of fortune in all the wars to come. I am out.